Have you ever stood in a hospital room, staring at a heart monitor, and suddenly realized that everything you had worried about for years seemed meaningless in a single moment? Some people spend an entire lifetime accumulating, striving, holding tightly to one thing after another. Yet when faced with the fragility of life, they can hold on to only one thing: the breath moving through their chest right now. Life is strange. We grow up believing we must achieve something before we can feel complete. We must be more successful, more wealthy, more recognized. But the more we chase, the more we feel a sense of lack. And then one day, looking back, we realize time has passed like morning dew on a flower, shimmering for a moment, then vanishing as the sun rises. You and I entered this world with empty hands. No fame, no money, no status. And when we leave the same way. We cannot carry with us anything that once kept us awake at night, anxious, competing, or burdened with sorrow through so many years. If that is the truth, and deep down, we all know it is, why do we still live as if everything were permanent? Perhaps because we fear loss, fear change, fear what lies beyond our control. But life itself is woven from change, gain and loss, meeting and parting, success and failure. No spring remains forever, and no winterists without end. Nature has never promised absolute stability, yet it always promises balance. And still, we try to hold on to what must pass. We cling to a relationship that has changed. We cling to an older version of ourselves. We cling to expectations that no longer fit the present, and that clinging exhausts the heart. I once met a man who had worked nearly 40 years at the same company. He devoted his youth to climbing each rung of the career ladder. When he retired, he fell into silence, not because he lacked money, not because he lacked time, but because he did not know who he was without his title. One afternoon, he said to me, "I thought I was building a life, but now I realize I was building a cage." That cage was not created by work. It was created by attachment. We cling to roles, to achievements, to the image of ourselves in the eyes of others. And when those things change, as they inevitably will, we feel as though we ourselves are collapsing. But if we understand that everything is impermanent, we stop seeing change as loss. We begin to see it as the natural movement of life, like the tide rising and falling, like green leaves turning yellow, like dawn arriving and night returning. There is nothing wrong with this rhythm. Suffering begins when we insist that things must be otherwise. A strange lightness appears when we accept that life does not belong to us to control. We are simply passing through, experiencing, learning, and growing. When we stop gripping, our hands grow lighter. When we stop resisting, our hearts grow softer. When we stop demanding that life follow our will, we begin to feel peace. To move with nature does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It does not mean letting life drift aimlessly. It means living fully in the present while understanding that everything is in motion. We act wholeheartedly without clinging to results. We love deeply without trying to possess. We strive sincerely without losing ourselves. Try to remember, where did the most peaceful moments of your life come from? Was it when you achieved something grand? Or when you sat quietly with a warm cup of tea, listening to rain outside the window? When you laughed with someone you love? When you walked slowly through a wind-filled afternoon? Peace does not come from a perfect life. It arrives when we stop demanding perfection. And perhaps the most liberating truth we can learn in this lifetime is this: nothing truly belongs to us, yet every experience is a gift. When we understand this, we stop rushing, we stop comparing, we stop racing, we begin to live, not to hold on, not to accumulate, not to prove, but to feel, to love, to be present. And when we move with the natural flow of life, something quiet and miraculous happens. The mind becomes still. Not because the waves disappear, but because we no longer resist them. Tomorrow may still bring things we do not expect. Loss may still arrive. What we cherish may still change. But deep within, we know we are still okay. Because we understand, everything comes and goes. Only the peace within is something we can cultivate. And perhaps the question is no longer, how do I keep everything forever? But rather, how lightly can I live, knowing that everything is passing? If you are listening to this after a long day, allow your shoulders to soften. Take a slow, gentle breath in and exhale with ease. All worries may rest for this moment. Inner peace needs time to settle. There's a strange paradox. The more we try to force the mind to be quiet, the more restless it becomes. Have you ever lain down at night, turned off the lights, silenced your phone, yet your mind refused to stop? Small thoughts suddenly grow enormous. A careless remark someone made is replayed again and again. An old mistake returns with the clarity of yesterday, and then you tell yourself, calm down. But the more you try to be calm, the more tangled the mind becomes. If you have experienced this, please do not think you are weak. This is a deeply human experience. We grow up in a world that teaches us everything must be controlled. Control emotions, control thoughts, control outcomes. We believe peace is something to be achieved through effort and discipline. Yet sometimes, and that very effort stirs the mind even more. There is an old story, simple yet profound. A student was traveling with his teacher on a pilgrimage. The day was hot, dust clung to their feet. After walking for some time, they came upon a lake by the road. The teacher said, "Go down to the lake and bring me some water to drink." The student walked to the shore, but he saw people had just been washing clothes there, and a cart had passed through, stirring mud from the bottom. The water was cloudy and thick. He returned and said, "Master, the water is dirty. It cannot be drunk." The teacher nodded and said nothing. Half an hour later, he said again, "Go back to the lake and bring me some water." The student was surprised but obeyed. When he returned, he saw the water had become clear. The mud had settled to the bottom. He filled a bowl and brought it back. The teacher looked at the water and asked, "Did you do anything to make the water clear?" "No, master." "You simply left it alone, didn't you?" The student suddenly understood. The human mind is like that lake. When stirred by worry, anger, hurt, or pressure, we often react by trying to fix it immediately. We try to suppress anger. We try to forget sadness. We try to think positively. But the more we try, the more we stir the deeper sediment of emotion. Emotions are not wrong. Thoughts are not wrong. They are simply ripples in motion. And like mud in water, when we stop stirring, they naturally settle. Have you noticed? There are moments when you feel intensely angry. But if you do not continue arguing, do not replay the story, do not feed the anger. A few hours later, the emotion softens, not because you defeated it, but because you stopped stirring it. Yet in modern life, our minds are rarely left alone. The moment we wake, we check our phones. News, notifications, emails pour in. Throughout the day, noise, pressure, and tasks accumulate. While at night we fill our exhaustion with glowing screens, the mind is never truly at rest. A friend once told me she could not sit in silence for more than 2 minutes. When she tried meditation, she felt more anxious and restless. She thought meditation was making her worse. Until one day, she did not meditate, did not try to relax, did not try to change anything. She simply sat by the window watching the rain. No music, no phone, no effort. 10 minutes later, she noticed her breathing slow. Her shoulders softened. Her thoughts did not disappear, but they no longer overwhelmed her. It was the first time she experienced the mind settling naturally. Peace is not forced silence. Peace is the natural stillness that appears when we stop stirring within. When we stop resisting emotions, we begin to understand them. When we stop running from thoughts, we begin to see them clearly. When we stop rushing to fix ourselves, we begin to accept who we are. And within that acceptance, a lightness emerges. Perhaps right now there are still many unsettled things within you. Pressures unresolved, wounds not yet healed, questions without answers. That is okay. You do not need to solve everything today. You do not need to force yourself to be okay immediately. You only need to give your mind time, like a lake after the wind, like the sky after the rain. Clarity has not disappeared. It is simply waiting to settle. And when the mind begins to grow still, you will realize you no longer need to battle your emotions, because within that natural stillness, peace has always been there. And when peace appears, we begin to see life through a different lens, lighter, deeper, and more understanding, ready to step into whatever life wishes to teach us next. Pause for a moment, feel your breath, and let your thoughts drift by like clouds. Differences between people are natural. Have you noticed that sometimes what exhausts us most is not work, but people? There are days when everything seems fine, until someone says something that unsettles you, a glance lacking warmth, a misunderstanding, a conflicting opinion. And suddenly your entire mood sinks. If you have felt this way, you are not alone. Living among other human beings is always a complex journey, not because we are bad, but because we are different. We grow up in different families. We are raised with different values. We endure different pains and experiences. We learn from different environments, so the way we see the world cannot be the same. Yet strangely, we often expect others to think like us, react like us, and understand us instantly. And when that does not happen, we feel hurt. A friend once told me she had been angry with her younger sister for many years because of a single remark made during a family gathering. She believed her sister had intentionally embarrassed her. Each time she remembered it, her chest tightened. Many years later, during an ordinary conversation, her sister suddenly said, "That day I was so anxious I spoke carelessly. I don't even remember what I said." In that moment, she realized she had carried hurt for years because of something the other person had not even been aware of. We do not suffer when conflict happens. We suffer because we carry it for too long. Differences between people are as natural as the changing seasons. But when we refuse to accept those differences, conflict becomes inevitable. In families, parents and children face generational gaps. At work, colleagues have different working styles. In relationships, each person has different emotional needs. No one is entirely wrong. No one is absolutely right. Each person is simply viewing life from a different angle. Imagine standing before a mountain with 3 other people. One stands to the east, one to the west, one to the south. Each describes the mountain as they see it. Who is correct? All of them are correct, from their perspective. Yet in life, we argue as if there were only one truth. When we insist on defending our viewpoint, we are not merely trying to prove we are right. We are protecting the ego, and the ego is exhausting. There is something interesting. We are rarely exhausted by others. We are exhausted by our own emotions in response to them. Anger drains our energy. Resentment weighs down the heart. Bitterness prevents the mind from resting. Forgiveness is not a gift we give to others. Forgiveness is a gift we give to ourselves. Forgiveness does not mean agreeing with wrongdoing. It does not mean accepting harm. It does not mean forgetting everything. Forgiveness simply means deciding not to carry that burden any longer. A man once told me, "I thought if I didn't forgive, the other person would suffer. But in the end, I was the one losing sleep." When we hold resentment, we drink poison and wait for someone else to suffer. Compassion is not weakness. Compassion is the strength of one who understands that holding hatred only burdens the heart. You may not be able to change others, but you can choose how to respond. You can argue to win, or choose silence for peace. You can cling to hurt or set it down and move forward. Which feels lighter for your heart? Perhaps today you are still carrying irritation toward someone, a remark, an action, a misunderstanding left unresolved. Ask yourself, does holding this bring me peace? Sometimes we do not need others to change in order to be at peace. We only need to change the way we see. The unknowing can teach us patience. The angry can teach us calm. The different can teach us to widen the heart. And when we learn this, relationships are no longer battlefields. They become places for growth. Forgiveness lightens the mind. Compassion widens the heart. Accepting differences makes life less exhausting. And when the heart is no longer heavy with conflict, we begin to have the energy to live more gently, to understand more deeply the lessons life is preparing to teach us next. Forgiveness and compassion are inner strength. If you hold a burning coal in your hand intending to throw it at someone else, who is burned first? There are wounds that do not lie on the skin, yet smolder quietly within for years. An insult, a betrayal, a moment of unfair treatment. These memories are not loud, yet they silently drain our energy every day. And strangely, sometimes the person who hurt us has long moved on, while we remain standing in that moment. If you have ever carried resentment in your heart, you are not weak. You are human. Every one of us has been hurt. Every one of us has felt disrespected, misunderstood, or treated unfairly. But the important question is not, who hurt you? It is, how long do you want to carry that pain? We often think forgiveness is something extremely difficult, almost impossible. Many believe forgiving means excusing wrongdoing, accepting mistreatment, or appearing weak. But the truth is entirely different. Forgiveness is not surrender. Forgiveness is release. Forgiveness does not make the other person right. Forgiveness allows your heart to be free. There is a small story I always remember. A man carried resentment toward a former business partner for 10 years. He believed he had been deceived and had lost a major opportunity in his career. Whenever the man was mentioned, his face tightened, his voice grew heavy. One day, his doctor warned that his blood pressure had risen to a dangerous level, and prolonged stress was the primary cause. He began learning to let go, not because the other person deserved forgiveness, but because he deserved peace. Months later, he said, "I realized that for 10 years, he lived his life, while I lived inside my own anger." Forgiveness does not change the past, but it changes your future. When we hold hatred, the mind becomes bound to what has happened. We relive the same wound again and again. We carry it into new relationships, new decisions, and the way we see the world. But when we forgive, that binding cord is loosened. And the surprising truth is, the first person set free is ourselves. Compassion is the same. Compassion does not mean overlooking all wrongdoing. Compassion means understanding that people act according to their level of awareness at that moment. The one who hurt you may be living within their own pain. The one who behaves harshly may never have been treated with kindness. The one who causes harm may never have learned how to love in a healthy way. Understanding this does not make wrong actions right, but it lightens the heart. There is a quiet strength in choosing not to react to every injury. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough not to let darkness spread within your own mind. Forgiveness is the dignity of maturity. Compassion is the sign of a heart that understands life. Have you noticed? Those who are truly at peace rarely carry much resentment, not because they have never been hurt, but because they have learned not to keep what weighs down the heart. Forgiveness does not happen in a single moment. It is a process. Sometimes you must forgive the same wound many times, and that is completely normal. What matters is that you are choosing healing instead of continued pain. Ask yourself, if today you set down one resentment, how much lighter would your life become? Would you sleep more deeply? Would you smile more easily? Would you live more fully in the present? The road of life already carries many burdens. We do not need to carry the stones of the past as well. Forgiveness does not make you smaller. It makes you larger. Compassion does not cause you to lose. It widens the path you walk. And when the heart becomes light, you will discover that the energy once consumed by resentment transforms into peace, clarity, and kindness. Perhaps you are not ready to forgive right now. That is okay. Simply begin with the intention to soften. Begin by not feeding the resentment further. Little by little, the heart will learn to open. And when you walk forward with a heart no longer burdened by hatred, the road ahead becomes wider, brighter, as if life itself is smiling back at you. And in that lightness, we begin to feel more clearly a deep well of peace forming within. Forgiving others lightens the heart, but forgiving yourself truly liberates the soul. You do not need to be perfect to deserve peace. Do not hand the key to your happiness to other people. Have you ever noticed how a single sentence from someone can change your mood for the entire day? A morning begins normally. You wake up, sip your coffee, prepare for the day ahead. Then someone casually says something insensitive. A message goes unanswered. A cold glance passes by. And suddenly, your emotions sink. The day no longer feels light. If this feels familiar, you are not alone. Most of us, at some point in life, have handed over the emotional key to someone else without realizing it. We feel happy when praised. We feel down when ignored. We feel confident when recognized. We doubt ourselves when criticized. Our moods rise and fall according to how others treat us. And gradually, our happiness no longer belongs to us. There's a small story about a well-known journalist. One morning, he stopped to buy a newspaper from a roadside stand. He smiled and thanked the vendor. The vendor remained cold and silent. As they walked away, his friend asked, "Why are you still kind to him when he isn't friendly at all?" The journalist replied, "Why should I let his attitude determine how I behave?" The answer is simple, yet it holds a profound freedom. Many of us unknowingly hand over control of our emotions to other people. A woman says, "I feel sad because my husband is always busy." A mother sighs, "I am angry because my child doesn't listen." An employee laments, "I lost motivation because my boss doesn't appreciate me." In each statement, the key to happiness rests in someone else's hands. When we believe others must change for us to feel happy, we surrender control of our lives to them. And the dangerous part is, they do not even know they are holding it. The truth is, we cannot control how others behave, but we can always choose how we respond. An unanswered message may make us sad, or we can understand the person is busy. Criticism may wound us or help us grow. A rainy day may feel gloomy, or become an invitation to slow down and rest. Same circumstance, different experience. The difference is not the outer world, but the inner one. I once knew a man who lost his job after 20 years of service. While many would collapse under such news, he said, "This is an opportunity to begin what I truly want to do." 2 years later, he opened a small woodworking shop and lived simply, yet happier than ever before. The job did not determine his happiness. His perspective did. When we learn to master our emotions, we stop waiting for the world to make us happy. We begin creating joy from small moments: a gentle morning sunlight, a simple meal, a sincere conversation, a quiet moment to breathe slowly. Joy is no longer a rare reward. It becomes a way of living. This does not mean we will never feel sad. No one escapes emotion. But instead of being swept away by feelings, we learn to observe them, accept them, and continue forward. Happiness does not arrive when everything is perfect. Happiness arrives when we no longer depend on perfection. You might ask yourself, if no one praises you today, can you still feel content? If things do not go as planned, can you remain peaceful? If no one understands you, Can you understand yourself? These questions do not weaken you. They help you grow. When you keep the key to your happiness in your own hands, you are no longer carried away by others' emotions. You no longer live for external approval. You no longer depend on circumstances to feel complete. You become free. And that freedom is not loud. It is gentle. It is quiet. It feels like standing in an ordinary day, yet feeling completely at ease inside. Happiness is not in other people's hands. It is not in praise or recognition. It is not in perfect conditions. It begins within you. And when you take that key back, you will realize you no longer need to wait for life to change, because peace has already begun to bloom from within your own heart. In the second half of life, we begin to live more lightly and with awareness. There comes a moment in life when we suddenly realize we have spent too many years running and forgotten why we started. At some point, many of us begin to look at life differently. We are no longer in a rush to prove ourselves, no longer obsessed with winning or losing, no longer swept into endless debates about who is right and who is wrong. Not because we have grown weaker, but because we have begun to understand what truly matters. If you have ever felt this, the desire to slow down, to live more gently, it is not a sign of exhaustion. It is a sign of maturity. When we are young, we often believe we must be right. We must defend our opinions. We must win every argument. But over time, we realize that many arguments do not bring understanding. They only create distance. Some arguments end in victory, but leave relationships fractured. And we begin to ask ourselves, what matters more, being right or being at peace? An older man once said, "When I was young, I argued to prove I was right. Now I stay silent to keep my heart peaceful." That is not defeat. That is wisdom. With time, we also learn to release regret. Each of us has made choices that later seemed imperfect. A job we left, a relationship that ended, an opportunity we did not take. But life does not offer a return ticket. If we live forever inside the question, what if, we miss the present. A woman I knew spent years regretting that she never pursued her dream of art when she was young. One day, she bought a small box of watercolor paints and began painting again, not to become an artist, but to nurture joy. She realized life does not require perfection. It simply invites us to continue living. And as we move through the later chapters of life, many begin to understand that simplicity is a gift. We no longer need so much to feel fulfilled. A warm meal, a quiet afternoon, a sincere conversation. We begin to appreciate the small things we once overlooked. Simplicity is not deprivation. Simplicity is freedom from unnecessary complexity. When the heart becomes simple, we stop calculating. We no longer measure every word, every action of others. We stop keeping mental ledgers of what someone owes us. A quiet calm begins to appear, not because life becomes less unpredictable, but because we no longer react fiercely to every change. There is something curious. When we stop trying to appear clever in every situation, we feel lighter. Sometimes being a little foolish, not competing, not overanalyzing, not insisting on clarity in everything, allows us to breathe more easily. Not everything needs explanation. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Not every moment deserves a place in the heart. Lightness arrives when we know what to keep and what to release, and then we discover a simple joy: blessing others. When we sincerely wish others peace, success, and happiness, our hearts open. Someone once said, "When I stopped comparing my life with others, I began to feel joy when they were happy." That joy is not loud. It is warm. It makes us feel connected to life rather than competing with it. Perhaps you are entering a season of life where what once felt important now seems small. Perhaps you realize you need less than before. Perhaps you are learning to slow down. Do not worry. You are not falling behind. You are returning to what is essential. Living lightly does not mean living carelessly. Living slowly does not mean stopping. Living simply does not mean lacking. It is a way of living that gives the heart space to breathe. And when the heart has that space, we begin to see more clearly the beauty in each day, each moment. Perhaps maturity is not becoming stronger. Perhaps it is becoming gentler. And when we learn to live with awareness, calmness, and simplicity, we discover that happiness does not lie in gaining more, but in releasing what is no longer needed. From that lightness, a deep and quiet peace begins to grow, opening before us a new way of seeing the life that lies ahead. Pain does not change. The capacity of the heart determines how deeply we suffer. Why is it that the same pain can cause one person to collapse, while another rises and continues forward stronger than before? There are moments in life when we believe the pain we carry is too great to endure. A loss, a betrayal, a failure, a wound no one else can see. It can feel as if the weight of the world is pressing against our chest. And yet, when we look around, we see people who have endured similar, even greater hardships, and they remain calm. They are not emotionless. They are not strangely invincible. They still feel pain, but the pain does not drown them. Where does the difference lie? There's a simple story that holds profound wisdom. A student once went to his teacher and lamented that life was too painful. His continuous hardships made him feel he could no longer endure. The teacher quietly handed him a handful of salt and said, "Put this salt into a glass of water and drink." The student did as instructed. Immediately, he grimaced. "It's too salty, I can't drink this." The teacher said nothing. He led the student to a nearby lake and said, "Now put the same amount of salt into the lake and drink the water." The student did so and bent down to take a sip. "How does it taste?" the teacher asked. "It still tastes fresh," the student replied. The teacher looked at him and said, "The pain in life is like this handful of salt. The amount does not change. What changes is the container. Pain does not always disappear, but how we hold it determines how deeply we experience it. When the mind is narrow like a glass, even a small hurt makes life taste bitter. We replay a single remark. We cling to a mistake. We allow one failure to define our worth. But when the heart becomes vast like a lake, the same pain no longer overwhelms us. It still exists, but it no longer dominates the whole of our life. We often try to eliminate suffering, but life does not function that way. Loss, disappointment, and hurt are part of the human journey. What we can change is not every circumstance, but the spaciousness of our own heart. A mother who lost a child may become a source of strength for other grieving families. A person who once went bankrupt may inspire young entrepreneurs. Someone betrayed in love may learn to love more deeply, not because they did not feel pain, but because their hearts became large enough to hold pain without being submerged by it. You can see this in everyday life. When you are exhausted and tense, a small problem can make you explode. But when you are calm and rested, the same problem seems minor. The problem did not change. The capacity of the heart did. When we live inside the narrow world of me and mine, every hurt becomes enormous. But when we widen our hearts, caring for others, seeing life from a broader perspective, we begin to see our pain as one small part of a larger picture. This does not erase the pain, but it makes us less alone within it. Expanding the heart does not mean silent endurance. It means learning to see more deeply. We understand that everyone is fighting unseen battles. We understand that mistakes are part of growth. We understand that hurt is not the end. Someone once said, "My heart doesn't hurt less. It has simply become larger." And when the heart becomes larger, suffering is no longer the center of every experience. You can begin expanding your heart through very small acts, listening instead of reacting, understanding instead of judging, giving instead of grasping, seeing broadly instead of narrowly. Gradually, the mind becomes like a lake, deep, wide, and still. When the wind rises, the surface may ripple, but the depth remains peaceful. Perhaps right now you carry a pain within you, something you cannot yet release, a memory that still tightens your chest. You do not need to force yourself to forget. You only need to widen your heart enough to hold it. And when the heart is spacious enough, pain no longer becomes the salt that overwhelms your life. It becomes one small part of the vast ocean of your experience. When the heart opens wider, we begin to recognize how much we already have. And within that expansion, we start to feel a quiet strength, a strength that allows us to continue forward more gently, more deeply, ready to receive the next lessons life offers. Contentment is the key to happiness. Have you ever noticed that the more we have, the more we seem to feel we lack? There is a paradox in modern life. We live more comfortably than any generation before us, yet satisfaction seems increasingly rare. Our phones are smarter, our homes more convenient, our opportunities greater. But the feeling of enough still feels distant. If you have ever thought, just a little more and I'll feel complete, you are not alone. We grow up in a world that encourages comparison. We compare income, appearance, success, lifestyles. With only a few minutes on social media, we can feel as though we are falling behind in an invisible race. Others travel more. Others succeed earlier. Others appear to live perfect lives. And suddenly, the small joys in our own lives begin to fade. But pause for a moment. Before looking at someone else's life, have you truly looked at your own? There's a small story about a farmer in a poor village. One day, he won the lottery and became the wealthiest man in the region. At first, he was overwhelmed with joy, but a few months later, he could not sleep. He feared being robbed. He feared others' jealousy. He feared losing his wealth. Finally, he said, "Before, I was poor but slept peacefully. Now I am rich, yet my heart is restless." The story does not say that money is bad. It simply shows that happiness is not found in having more. Happiness lives in the feeling of enough. Desire has no finishing line. When we achieve what we want, we quickly adapt and begin wanting more. This keeps us running on an invisible treadmill, moving fast but going nowhere. Comparison is a silent fire that burns away joy. When we compare, we will always find someone who has more. And in that race, we forget what we already possess. A roof that shelters us from rain and sun, a meal that nourishes us, someone we can call when we need comfort, a body still strong enough to walk. Things once considered miracles have become ordinary. Contentment does not mean abandoning dreams or stopping effort. Contentment means appreciating what we have, even as we continue moving forward. A friend once told me, "I still set big goals, but I don't postpone happiness until I reach them." That is the difference between healthy ambition and endless craving. When we learn contentment, we no longer live in a state of psychological scarcity. We no longer feel we must achieve something before we deserve happiness. We begin to enjoy the present, soft morning sunlight, a warm cup of tea, the laughter of loved ones, a moment to breathe slowly. These simple moments suddenly become precious. You can try something very simple. Tonight before sleeping, think of 3 small things that made you grateful today. They do not need to be grand, only genuine. You may discover that life is not lacking in goodness. We simply overlook it. A content person is not one who has little. They are one who does not allow greed to steal their peace. There is a profound freedom in no longer chasing other people's standards, in no longer feeling compelled to live at the pace of the world around us. We begin living at the rhythm of our own hearts. And within that slower rhythm, serenity appears. Not because we possess everything, but because we realize we already have enough. Perhaps your life is not perfect. Perhaps you are still striving, still dreaming, still building a future. That is natural. But you do not have to wait for perfection before allowing yourself peace. Happiness is not at the final destination. It lives in the way we walk each day. When we stop comparing, the heart grows lighter. When we reduce craving, the mind grows calmer. When we know enough, life becomes enough. And from that sense of enough, a deep peace begins to spread, like still water reflecting the vast sky above. Letting go of the past and attachment? Are you moving forward, or quietly dragging behind you the weight of what has already passed? Some people appear to be living in the present, yet their hearts remain trapped in a day long gone. A wrong decision, a relationship that ended, a missed opportunity, words that were never spoken, and they live with two heavy words. If only. If you have ever felt this way, you are not alone. All of us have looked back at the past with regret. It is deeply human. The problem is not that we remember the past. The problem is when we live inside it. The past is like a film that is already finished playing. We may revisit it, learn from it, smile, or even shed tears. But if we remain seated in the old theater, we will miss the film unfolding before us. The present. Many people think they are remembering, and in truth, they are stuck. A man once told me he spent years trying to move on from a broken marriage. Not because he still loved his former partner, but because he could not forgive himself. He replayed the same thought over and over. I should have done things differently. One day he said, I realized I wasn't living in the present. I was living in a courtroom of the past. We often become the judge, the lawyer, and the defendant inside our own minds. We put past mistakes on trial. We accuse ourselves for old decisions. We deny ourselves the chance to be free. But the truth is, the person you were yesterday did not possess the understanding you have today. You made decisions based on the knowledge and circumstances you had at that time. If you had known better, you would have done better. Growth does not come from never making mistakes. It comes from learning after them. When we refuse to release the past, we become travelers carrying stones in our backpacks. Every step grows heavier. The road grows more exhausting. What are these stones? Regret, resentment, self-blame, memories we refuse to set down. The irony is, we no longer need to carry them. A mountain climber cannot reach the summit while collecting stones along the path. Yet in life, we often hold on to the very things that weigh us down. Letting go does not mean forgetting. Letting go means not allowing the past to control the present. A woman once kept a box of mementos from a relationship that ended more than 10 years earlier. Each time she opened it, she cried. She believed keeping those objects meant preserving the love. One day she closed the box and said, "Love is not inside these objects. It lives in the experience I had." From that day forward, she began living more lightly. We do not need to keep pain to prove it once existed. We do not need to hold on to the past to prove it once mattered. Letting go does not reduce the value of what happened. Letting go allows us to continue living. Perhaps you carry a memory that still tightens your chest, something never properly said goodbye, a mistake you have not forgiven yourself for. You do not need to erase the memory. You only need to set it down. Like a traveler resting by the roadside, removing a heavy backpack and realizing how light the body feels. Ask yourself, if today you set down one thing from the past, how much lighter would you feel? Would your breathing deepen? Would your sleep become more restful? Would you live the present more fully? The past is a place to learn, not a place to live. When we let go, we lose nothing. We simply release the energy that was trapped in regret and self-blame. And within that new space, freedom appears. Freedom from old stories. Freedom from inner trials. Freedom from unnecessary burdens. You still have memories, but they no longer hold you back. You still remember, but you are no longer trapped. And when you walk forward with lighter shoulders and a more open heart, you will realize the present has been waiting for you, vibrant, alive, and filled with opportunities to begin again. Because sometimes what allows us to go farther is not trying harder, but putting down what we no longer need to carry. Happiness comes from giving and loving. Have you ever noticed that the warmest moments in life often come from giving, not receiving? We grow up believing happiness comes from achieving success, gaining recognition, obtaining what we desire. And it is true. When we receive something good, we feel joy. But that joy often fades quickly. In contrast, there are simple moments, helping a stranger, listening to someone who is hurting, offering kindness without expecting anything in return, that leave a warm feeling in the heart for a very long time. If you have experienced this, you have touched a profound truth. Human beings are nourished not only by what they receive, but also by what they give. In life, we often think giving means losing. We fear that if we give too much, we will be left with less. We measure, calculate, and weigh what might return to us. But genuine love does not operate by arithmetic. An elderly man once spent every morning picking up trash around a park near his home. No one paid him. No one asked him to do it. Many people did not even know his name. One day, a child ran up and asked, "Why do you do this every day?" He smiled and replied, "When the park is clean, people feel more comfortable, and when they feel comfortable, the world becomes a little better." He did not do it for recognition. He did it because he believed goodness spreads. Giving does not make our lives poorer. It makes our hearts richer. When we help others without calculation, we do not only change their lives, we change our own inner state. We feel meaningful. We feel connected to the world. We feel that our lives matter. Science even shows that when people perform acts of kindness, the body releases hormones associated with happiness and peace. But you do not need science to know this. Your heart has already felt it each time you helped someone without expecting anything in return. Love is not only a feeling, it is an action, a sincere check-in, a timely embrace, listening without judgment, patience when someone is exhausted. These gestures may seem small, yet they can change someone's entire day. And strangely, when we bring light to others, the darkness within us begins to fade. A woman once shared that after losing a loved one, she fell into a long period of silence and grief. One day, she began volunteering at a care center for the elderly. She listened to their stories, held the hands of those who were lonely, and read to them. Months later, she said, "I did not forget my pain, but when I helped others feel less alone, my heart felt less empty." Love does not erase pain, but it expands the heart so pain no longer fills the entire space. Compassion does not require perfection. It does not demand that we always be strong or cheerful. Compassion begins with understanding that everyone carries unseen burdens. The irritable person may be under pressure. The distant person may be hurting. The indifferent person may be exhausted. When we view life through the lens of understanding, we respond differently. We become gentler, more patient, and the world around us seems to soften. Giving is not always material. Sometimes the most precious gift we can offer is our full presence. When we truly listen to someone, without rushing to advise, without checking our phones, without distraction, we offer something rare in this busy world. You might ask yourself, today, what goodness can I bring to someone else? It does not need to be grand, only sincere. A smile, a thank you, a kind act, an act of forgiveness. When we live with an open heart, life becomes more meaningful, not because we receive more, but because we feel ourselves part of the flow of life. Happiness is not accumulation. And happiness is connection. Happiness is love. Happiness is knowing that our presence brings goodness into the world. And when we give without calculation, we receive an invisible gift, a deep peace within the soul, a peace that does not depend on circumstances. not dependent on others, not dependent on being repaid. It is simply the feeling that the heart is opening and the current of love is flowing naturally. And from that place, we begin to understand that life is not measured by what we keep, but by what we have given along the path we walk. Your attitude toward life determines your happiness. The same rain can make one person feel gloomy, while another finds it soothing. What creates the difference? Life does not always move smoothly. There are days when everything flows with ease, and there are days when everything seems to work against us. Plans collapse, work falters, unexpected obstacles appear. In those moments, what determines our experience is not the circumstance, but the attitude we choose in response. If you have ever lived through a difficult day and realized that your attitude made it worse, you have touched an important truth. Attitude does not change reality, but it changes how we move through reality. Two people lose their jobs on the same day. One feels life is unfair, loses direction, and sinks into despair. The other feels sadness but tells himself, "So this may be an opportunity to begin again." Same circumstance, different path. Optimism is not pretending everything is fine. Optimism is believing that even in difficulty, a path forward still exists. A smile in adversity does not deny pain. It declares that pain does not have the right to define your entire life. Some people move through storms with calm faces, not because they have never suffered, but because they understand that negative emotions do not help them overcome hardship any faster. When we sink into pessimism, we begin to see the world through a dark lens. We see problems everywhere. We lose faith in ourselves. We lose motivation before trying again. Pessimism is like wearing dark glasses. Everything appears dim, even though the light is still present. But attitude is not fixed. It is a choice repeated every day. A friend of mine went through an extremely difficult period when his work failed repeatedly. He said there were mornings he did not want to get out of bed. Yet each day he told himself, "Today I will just do one small thing well." Just one small thing. Gradually, those small acts became progress, and confidence returned. Optimism does not require us to be strong all the time. It only asks that we do not abandon hope. There is a beautiful way to view life. It is like a cup of tea. At the first sip, we may taste bitterness, but if we are patient, a gentle sweetness begins to unfold. If we judge after the first sip, we miss the entire experience. Many experiences in life are the same. Initial difficulties may be bitter. Early failures may hurt. But if we continue forward, we may discover deeper meaning hidden within those trials. Have you ever looked back at a difficult period in your past and realized it helped you grow? What once caused pain has become a valuable lesson. What once caused fear has become a source of strength. An attitude helps us see value in experiences that once seemed purely negative. This does not mean we must feel cheerful about every hardship, but we can choose not to let hardship steal our faith. You might ask yourself, when facing difficulty, do I ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Or "What is this teaching me?" The first question traps us. The second opens the path to growth. A smile does not remove hardship, but it lightens the heart while facing it. Hope does not guarantee smooth outcomes, but it gives us the strength to continue. A positive attitude does not make life easier. It makes us steadier. Perhaps today you are facing things that did not go as planned. Perhaps the road ahead is still unclear. That is okay. You do not need to see the entire path. You only need to keep the light within you. Because the attitude you carry each day is the compass that guides you. It determines whether you see a dead end or an opportunity. It determines whether you stop or continue. Life may begin with bitterness, but if you are patient enough to continue, you may discover the sweetness waiting behind it. And when you change the way you see, the world around you seems to change as well. opening possibilities you had never seen before. Living fully in the present moment. Are you living in this moment? Or is your mind still in yesterday or worrying about tomorrow? There is something strange about the way we live. The body is here, but the mind is elsewhere. When we eat, we think about work. When we work, we think about the past. When we rest, we worry about the future. And while we rush back and forth between what has been and what has not yet arrived, the present quietly slips away. If you have ever felt time passing quickly without remembering how you truly lived those days, you are not alone. Life is not made of long stretches of years. It is made of small moments placed gently together. A morning, a conversation, a meal, a smile, a deep breath. Yet because we are preoccupied with what has happened or what might happen, we miss what is happening now. And some people live in the past. They replay old memories, old regrets, old mistakes. Each day becomes a repetition of yesterday. Some people live in the future. They worry constantly about what has not yet come. What if I fail? What if I lose everything? What if things do not go as planned? And that worry steals the peace of the present. The present becomes a place we pass through, instead of a place we live. A man once shared that he spent most of his life working tirelessly so that he could live later. He postponed joy, postponed rest, postponed time with family. But when retirement arrived, he discovered his health had declined, his children had grown, and time would not return. He said, "I prepared for the future, but forgot to live the present." Those words left many in silence. We are taught to plan for the future, and that is necessary. But when we sacrifice the entire present for a future that may never come, we trade away the only thing we truly possess. The past is gone. Only the future has not arrived. Only this moment is real. Living fully in the present does not mean neglecting responsibility or abandoning planning. It means that wherever we are truly there. When eating, we taste the food. When walking, we feel each step. When conversing, we listen fully. When resting, we allow ourselves to rest. These sound simple, yet in a hurried world, they become profound acts. Have you ever drunk a cup of tea without truly tasting it? Have you listened to someone speak without remembering what they said? Have you watched a sunset while your mind remained busy? We are present, but not truly here. A friend of mine once tried spending 5 minutes each day simply sitting and observing her breath. No music, no phone, no attempt to accomplish anything. At first, she felt restless, but after a few weeks, she noticed she was calmer, less reactive, and life seemed to slow down in a gentle way. Not because life had changed, but because she had begun to live each moment. Happiness is not a distant destination. It does not exist tomorrow when everything is perfect. It does not live in memories of the past. Happiness is the ability to be fully present in this moment. When you truly live in the present, small things become vivid. Morning sunlight is no longer ordinary. Laughter feels warmer. A soft breeze can calm the heart. You do not need a grand event to feel happy. You begin to see that happiness is always present, within the simplest things. This does not mean life will be free from difficulty. But when we live fully in the present, we do not carry the weight of the past or the anxiety of the future into the moment unfolding now, and the present moment becomes lighter. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly experienced a moment, without rushing, without distraction, without your thoughts elsewhere? Perhaps the answer lives in a quiet afternoon, the sound of rain, or a sudden awareness that you are breathing. A life is not an endless chain of long days. It is a series of moments passing right now. And when we live fully within each moment, we no longer feel that life is rushing past, because we are truly living it. Right here, right now, within the breath that is unfolding. And from this presence, a deep sense of peace begins to spread, as if time slows and life becomes more complete than ever before. The inner world shapes destiny. What if your destiny is not held in the hands of circumstance, but in the way your mind perceives those circumstances? We often believe our lives are determined by external factors: where we were born, whether our families had resources, the opportunities we encountered, the crises we faced. And it is true that circumstances influence us, but influence does not mean destiny. Some people are born into hardship, yet rise with strength. Others grow up with abundance, yet live in dissatisfaction and stagnation. The same starting point, two entirely different journeys. The difference is not in the circumstance, it lies within the inner world. There is an old saying, "Appearance arises from the mind, circumstances shift with the mind." When the mind changes, the way we see the world changes. When our perception changes, our actions change. And when actions change, life gradually shifts direction. If the mind is restless, we see threats everywhere. If the mind is filled with resentment, life appears unfair. If the mind is filled with fear, we hesitate to step forward. But if the mind is calm, we see opportunity within challenge. If the mind is steady, we rise after failure. If the mind is open, we learn instead of resist. Life does not transform overnight, but when the inner world changes, the way we walk through life changes. A woman once shared that she believed she was not good enough to succeed. Because of that belief, she did not try, did not advance, did not step beyond her comfort zone. She called it fate, until she realized fate was not blocking her path. Fear within her mind was holding her back. When she began changing the way she saw herself, she tried small things, learned new skills, accepted mistakes. Her life did not transform in a single night, but each small step opened new doors. Circumstances did not change first. The mind changed first. We cannot control everything that happens in life, but we can choose how we respond. One person faces hardship and asks, "Why is this happening to me?" Another faces hardship and asks, "What can I learn from this?" Different questions create different lives. A calm inner world does not mean the absence of emotion. It does not mean no pain, no sadness, no fear. It means that when emotions arise, we do not allow them to control our entire being. Like the surface of a lake. When wind blows, the surface ripples, but beneath, the water remains still. A person with inner steadiness is the same. They may be affected by turbulence, but they are not swept away. A friend of mine lost his job during a difficult economic period. He had a family to support and many responsibilities. The pressure was real. The worry was real. But instead of sinking into panic, he said, "I will take it one step at a time." He accepted temporary work, learned new skills in the evenings, and persistently searched for the right opportunity. A year later, he had a better job than before. The difficult circumstances did not vanish immediately, but inner steadiness helped him walk through them. When the mind panics, problems grow larger. When the mind is calm, solutions begin to appear. This is not magic. It is the power of clarity. Try recalling a time you solved a problem most effectively. Most likely, it was when you were calm, because calmness allows us to see clearly, and clarity allows us to act wisely. We often seek change outside ourselves, better conditions, better work, better environments. But sometimes the most important change begins within. When the mind changes, we stop reacting from old habits. We choose differently. We become more patient, more courageous, more resilient, and gradually, life responds to those choices. Not everything becomes easy, but we become stronger. Obstacles do not disappear, but we gain the inner strength to walk through them. If you are facing challenges that leave you weary, pause for a moment and ask, how is my mind viewing this situation? Is there a wider perspective? Is there an opportunity hidden within difficulty? Can I slow down instead of panicking? Because when the inner world changes, we no longer feel controlled by circumstances. We begin to guide our own lives. And from that depth, a gentle confidence appears. Whatever lies ahead, if the mind remains clear, we can continue forward. Perhaps destiny is not something already written. Perhaps it is shaped each day by the inner state we cultivate. And when the mind is peaceful, clear, and steady, we realize we are no longer swept away by life. We are walking calmly within its flow. Live like a flower blooming in the deep forest. If no one sees your effort, will you still continue to shine? We live in a world where recognition often becomes the measure of value. A post needs likes, a job needs praise, effort needs acknowledgement. Gradually, we grow accustomed to feeling worthy when we are seen, admired, and recognized. But have you ever wondered? If no one were watching, would what you do still have meaning? The question sounds simple, yet it touches something deep within each of us. The desire to be recognized, accepted, to feel important. This is deeply human. But when we depend entirely on the gaze of others, we risk losing connection with ourselves. Imagine a flower blooming deep in the forest. No one sees it. No one praises its beauty. No cameras, no applause. Does the flower stop blooming? No. It continues to bloom. It continues to release its fragrance. It continues to exist fully in its own beauty. Because the nature of a flower is to bloom, not to be recognized. And perhaps the nature of human beings is the same. We are not born to live according to the eyes of others. We are born to live according to the truth within us. Yet, along the path of growing up, we begin adjusting ourselves to be accepted. We say what is pleasing. We hide our true feelings. We choose the safe path instead of the path aligned with our hearts, not because we are weak, but because we fear judgment. A friend of mine once abandoned her passion for painting because her family believed it was not a stable career. Years later, after achieving success in another field, she still felt something missing. One day, she began painting again, not posting online, not exhibiting, not seeking praise. She simply painted. She said, "For the first time in many years, I feel like myself again." There are things we do not to be seen, but to stay connected to who we truly are. When we live dependent on praise or criticism, our emotions rise and fall with others' opinions. Praise lifts us. Criticism diminishes our confidence. We become like a leaf blown by the winds of public opinion. But when we live according to inner values, we become steadier. Praise becomes a gift, not fuel. Criticism becomes information, not a verdict. This does not mean ignoring feedback. It means not allowing it to define our worth. A ceramic artisan once said he spent hours perfecting details that no one might ever see. When asked why, he replied, "Because I see them." Integrity begins with what no one witnesses. Living like a flower blooming in the deep forest does not mean withdrawing from the world. It means not allowing your value to depend entirely on recognition. You do good work even when no one praises it. You remain kind even when no one notices. You remain honest even when no one checks. You keep trying even when no one sees. Because you know who you are. Perhaps you are doing quiet work that few recognize, caring for family, working diligently, learning each day, preserving kindness in a hurried world. These actions are not always applauded, but they shape your character, and character does not depend on external attention. Ask yourself, if no one judged you, how would you live differently? Would you be more courageous, more honest, more devoted to what you love? When we live to meet others' expectations, we may gain acceptance, but when we live true to our nature, we gain peace. Peace does not come from applause. Peace comes from no longer pretending to be someone else. Like a flower blooming deep in the forest, its beauty does not require an audience to exist. And when we live true to our deepest nature, we are no longer bound by external measures. We still listen. We still learn. We still grow. but we do not lose ourselves in the process. In the end, what gives life meaning is not how many people recognize us, but how truthfully we have lived. And when we dare to live like a flower in the deep forest, quietly, authentically, blooming according to our nature, we discover a profound freedom, the freedom to be ourselves, whether the world is watching or not. Accepting impermanence so the heart no longer resists. Have you noticed that much of our exhaustion in life does not come from what happens, but from our effort to resist what cannot be avoided? Life is always changing. This sounds familiar, almost obvious. Yet when change truly arrives, a relationship ends, a job slips away, health declines, a plan collapses, we realize we were not ready. We want things to remain the same. We want joy to last forever. We want those we love to stay. We want success to remain unchanged. And when life does not follow these wishes, we suffer, not because change occurs, but because we resist it. Life moves according to its own rhythm, meeting and parting, gaining and losing, blooming and fading, arriving and leaving. Spring does not stay forever. Autumn does not last eternally. Day follows night. Tides rise and fall. Yet human beings often long for only one season to remain. If you have ever felt a quiet emptiness when a beautiful chapter ended, that is natural. But when we try to hold on to what has passed, we begin living in resistance to reality. And that resistance exhausts us. Recall a time when you tried to hold on to something that had already changed. Perhaps a relationship that was no longer the same, a job that no longer fit, a chapter of life that had closed. The more you held on, the more tired you became. The less you accepted, the more pain you felt. Not because change was wrong, but because we could not accept that change is the nature of life. A woman once shared that after her son left home for school, she felt an emptiness and quiet sadness. The silent house made her feel she had lost a part of her life. For months, she lived with a sense of loss, until she realized her role as a mother had not disappeared. It had simply entered a new phase. When she began accepting this change, she discovered new joys. Caring for herself, meeting friends, learning new things. Her relationship with her son matured in a different way. Nothing was truly lost. It had only changed form. Accepting impermanence does not mean becoming indifferent or emotionless. It does not ask us to feel no sorrow in loss or no longing in separation. It simply means not allowing sorrow to harden into prolonged resistance, like a river flowing through many bends. If water insisted on holding one shape, it would cease to flow. Its ability to adapt allows the river to continue its journey. Our lives are the same. When we accept that everything changes, we begin to live more lightly. We cherish the present moment because we know it will not last forever. We love more deeply because we understand every meeting is finite. We feel more gratitude because we see that nothing is guaranteed. Impermanence does not make life meaningless. It makes life precious. If everything lasted forever, we would not treasure it. Fragility gives each moment its value. A falling leaf is not the end of the tree. It is part of the cycle of life. Winter is not the death of nature. It is preparation for spring. In each life, there are seasons. A season of beginnings, a season of flourishing, a season of quiet, a season of closure, and each season holds its own meaning. When we resist winter in our lives, we cannot see the renewal preparing beneath the surface. When we cling to summer, we miss the gentle beauty of autumn. Accepting impermanence allows us to move with the current instead of being swept away by it. You might ask yourself, what in your life are you resisting? An unwanted change? A chapter that has ended? Something that is no longer as it was? If we pause, breathe deeply, and accept reality as it is, we may feel a gradual lightness arise. Not because circumstances have changed, but Because resistance within us has softened. Peace does not come from controlling everything that happens. Life is always greater than our control. Peace comes from moving with the flow, like a swimmer who moves with the current rather than against it. When we learn to smile at life's changes, we do not become weak. We become flexible. And that flexibility helps us remain steady amid change. Life will continue to change. Things will come and go. New chapters will open as old ones close. And when we no longer resist impermanence, we begin to experience a profound freedom. The freedom to live fully in each season. The freedom to release when needed. And the freedom to step forward when the path ahead opens. Perhaps peace is not found in keeping everything the same, but in the ability to smile as everything changes. Stillness allows us to hear the deep voice of the soul. When was the last time you truly sat in silence and listened to yourself? We are living in a world noisier than ever before. The sound of phone notifications, endless streams of news, work following work, conversations, appointments, invisible pressures that leave the mind rarely at rest. And within this constant motion, something quiet happens. We gradually lose contact with ourselves, not because we lack time, but because we lack stillness. Many people fear silence. When there is no sound, no task, no distraction to occupy the mind, restlessness appears. We quickly reach for our phones, turn on music, search for something to fill the space. Yet within that space lies the opportunity to hear the deepest voice of the soul. If you have ever felt yourself running fast without knowing where you are going, you are not alone. Modern life encourages speed, productivity, busyness, but it rarely encourages stopping. And sometimes, what we need is not to move faster, but to pause long enough to understand why we are moving at all. A man working for years in a high-pressure environment achieved success and remained constantly busy, always chasing the next goal. One day, he realized he was exhausted without knowing why. At a friend's suggestion, he began spending 10 minutes each morning sitting quietly. No phone, no music, simply focusing on his breath. At first, he felt uncomfortable. His mind jumped from thought to thought. But after several weeks, he noticed something surprising. For the first time in years, he could hear himself. He realized he did not truly love his current work as he once believed. He realized he missed the creativity he had abandoned. He realized he needed balance. No one told him these things. Stillness did. It's amid the noise of the world, the inner voice is soft. It does not shout. It whispers. And if we do not pause, we may never hear it. Stillness does not mean escaping life. It is the necessary pause that allows us to return to ourselves. When we slow down and breathe deeply, the body begins to relax. The heartbeat softens. The mind becomes less chaotic. Thoughts that once felt urgent begin to appear clearer. We begin to see what truly matters. Worries that once seemed enormous become smaller. Things we thought we had to pursue feel less necessary. Simple moments we once overlooked become precious. Stillness does not weaken us. It clarifies us. Like the surface of water when waves settle, we can see the lakebed below. When the mind becomes quiet, we see the truth within ourselves. A busy mother balancing work and family once said she constantly felt pressed for time and overwhelmed. One evening, after everyone was asleep, she began sitting quietly for a few minutes. She did nothing special. She simply sat, breathed, and felt. Over time, she realized she did not need to be perfect in everything. She began releasing the pressure she had placed upon herself. She felt more at peace, not because life became less busy, but because her mind became less noisy. We often search for answers outside ourselves, in books, advice, and other people. Yet many answers already live within us, waiting to be heard. You can try setting aside a few minutes each day to turn off all devices, sit quietly, and breathe slowly. No special technique is needed. Simply observe your breath, feel your body, and allow thoughts to come and go. At first, it may feel uncomfortable, but gradually stillness becomes a gentle refuge. Within stillness, we do not need to prove anything. We do not need to accomplish anything. We do not need to become anyone else. We simply are ourselves. And in that space, wisdom begins to emerge, not loudly, not forcefully, but clearly and gently. We recognize what needs to be released. We understand what must be kept. We see the next path forward. Stillness does not change the outer world, but it changes how we walk within it. In a hurried life, the ability to pause becomes a strength. It prevents us from being swept away. It helps us live with awareness. It allows us to maintain peace amid constant change. Perhaps you do not need more noise to fill your life. Perhaps you only need a quiet space to return home. Because when the mind settles, we do not only find peace, we find ourselves clear, steady, and at ease within the ever-flowing current of life. Imagine yourself walking along a quiet path, the soft glow of sunset settling around you, each step gentle and unhurried, every burden slowly slipping from your shoulders, and you feel safe, at peace. Core conclusion. Perhaps after everything we have walked through together, you are beginning to notice a very simple truth. What we spend our entire lives searching for is not somewhere far away. We once believed peace would arrive when everything settled, when work became stable, when the family felt harmonious, when finances were secure, when pressure disappeared and worries faded. Yet life continues to change. Joy comes and goes. Success is followed by new challenges. Even the things we wish to keep are carried away by time. And at some point, we begin to understand, if peace depends entirely on circumstances, we may wait a very long time, perhaps a lifetime. True peace does not begin in the outer world. It begins in how we see the world. When we release what we cannot control, the mind grows lighter. When we feel content with what we have, the heart stops craving. When we extend compassion to others and to ourselves, the heart opens. When we move in harmony with life, we stop resisting its flow. And within that gentleness, peace quietly appears. You may have realized that much of our exhaustion does not come from work or responsibility, but from repetitive thoughts, worries that have not happened, and regrets that belong to the past. When we learn to loosen our grip, the mind becomes more spacious, not because problems disappear, but because we stop carrying unnecessary weight. Contentment does not mean abandoning dreams. It means pausing long enough to appreciate what is already present. When we stop running in endless comparison, we begin to see how much we already have. A warm meal, a healthy body, a friend who truly listens, a peaceful morning. These seemingly small things form the foundation of happiness. Compassion is also a gift we give ourselves. When we hold on to resentment, the one imprisoned is not the other person. It is our own heart. We forgive not because others deserve it, but because we deserve peace. Living in harmony with nature does not mean giving up. It means accepting the changing rhythm of life, so we can move with flexibility instead of exhausting ourselves resisting the inevitable. When we master our emotions, we are no longer controlled by circumstances. We do not react impulsively. We do not let anger define us. We do not allow fear to block our path. We choose response instead of reaction. And when we live with love, without calculation, without waiting for return, the heart becomes a peaceful refuge. Love does not weaken us. It makes us whole. Perhaps happiness is not a distant destination. Perhaps it is the way we walk each day, the way we breathe, the way we see others, the way we face ourselves. Happiness is not found in possessing more. It is found in feeling more deeply. When we cherish the present, simple moments become vivid. When we slow down, life no longer rushes past. When we are fully present, we realize we were never as lacking as we once believed. Perhaps, after everything, what we truly seek is not a perfect life, but a peaceful soul within an imperfect life. If you have stayed until these final moments, perhaps something inside you has softened, lighter, clearer, a little more peaceful. And if today you carry just one small gift from this journey, let it be gentleness toward yourself. You do not need to change everything at once. Simply begin with a slower breath, a softer thought, a kinder choice. Life does not require perfection. It invites awareness. Thank you for staying until the end of this journey. Your presence gives this video meaning and reminds us that none of us are alone on the path toward peace. And perhaps, in this very moment as you sit here, reading or listening, a quiet peace has already begun to bloom within you.